Greetings from Tokyo, my dear friends. This is Daisuke, and I hope this video finds you well wherever you are in the world. I would like to take this opportunity to pick up on a project which I had started some months back on this YouTube channel. And it was a project where I was going through the Criterion collection Laserdiscs, one spine number at a time, and it was a project that I had hoped that would continue. And unfortunately, I didn't address the Laserdiscs for some time. But today, if you don't mind, I would like to return to this with Criterion collection spine number 7. This is a film from 1952, and this is the film called High Noon. This is a film directed by Fred Zinnemann and produced by Stanley Kramer, with a screenplay by Carl Foreman and music by Dmitri Tiomkin, starring Gary Cooper and Grace Kelly and others. This is the film High Noon, and this is the title that, as I say, falls under Criterion Collection Laserdisc spine number 7 as a Western, and it's a very famous and in many respects an iconic Western with Gary Cooper in the lead in a very famous and iconic role. And this has many aspects of it in terms of the filmmaking craft that are always noted upon in critical circles, and in terms of a form of cinematic entertainment. It still has a great sense of power and impact and thrill and suspense and drama. With a very compelling story that is very tight and neat and very complex, but also very easy to follow at the same time. And that's due, I think, to the way in which the film carries the story along at a lovely pace, with no lull or no sense of meandering. On the contrary, there is a very clear path forward, and we have a very compelling character at the center of it, at the lead, with a very sharp focus and intent to it. And I think that forms an entire sort of overall sense of the grace and wit and real impact of this film even today, as not only a great piece of entertainment, but also as a wonderful example of the cinematic craft in terms of music and editing and camera placement and the way that the frame is arranged, etc. So this is the film High Noon, the Western, the very famous Western High Noon, and it appears as a Criterion Collection Laserdisc under Criterion Collection spine number 7. So what we have here is the first printing from 1986, according to the back, and this is what's known as one of the silver covers. As some of you may know, the silver cover releases were the early releases from the Criterion Collection back in the day, as it were. And so we have this on the front, and here we have the back here as well, which has the essay, which is on the one side of the back cover, and then we have the cast and crew information, abbreviated cast and crew information, followed by information regarding the sides and the chapters. as well as other information about this Laserdisc, or it's called a video disc at the time. And this is an essay with Howard Suber, which is very significant because Howard Suber also provides the commentary, which is known as the 80-minute essay, and which is in essence a commentary track, and we understand that to be a commentary track in releases today. Well, back in the day, as some of you may know, Criterion in its Laserdiscs had commentary tracks for a number of its titles, High Noon being one of them. And so Howard Suber's commentary track is available as an option, and it is a very well arranged commentary track, and it still holds up even today. He makes some very interesting references to Niels Bohr and to Pythagoras and Greek myth, and he's basically trying to explain or provide context to the main character of Will Kane, the Gary Cooper character, and the sense of the Greek myth and the plight of the hero and the notion of tragedy. And he's also trying to explain this also in the context of certain production details, the Carl Foreman screenplay and the background behind that, certain aspects, how this film plays in the context of contemporary American history, House Un-American activities, situation, and things like that. Also how this film figures into the context of the Western genre, the genre of the Western, which was a very popular genre up to a certain point in time. And there are many actors that appear in this film that also appear in other films, and so there is a nice thread of explanation by Howard Suber as to who these actors were, and what their situation was, and what their careers were like up to this point. So it's a very full and a very quite straightforward commentary in terms of its clarity, in terms of how it hits its marks, and how it provides a lot of great information. So it's a wonderful wonderful commentary track. And I should say also that this particular Laserdisc release, which I have right here, is the CAV full feature format release. So this has the film broken down or spread out on 3 sides, so 2 discs, 2 sides each, so that means 3 sides, with a 4th side not being employed. And when I spoke about the commentary track, I wanted to bring that up, which is because the commentary track is also set forth or described in the inner part of the fold-out of this particular CAV release of High Noon, which is really great. On the one side, you have, of course, a picture of Gary Cooper, which is a very famous part of the film. And then on the other side, sorry for the glare, we have a full cast and crew breakdown. And then here, it's hard to see because the print is small, I apologize. But this is also a breakdown of the commentary track by side. So not only do you get a chapter breakdown of the film here, but you also get a commentary breakdown here. So if you wanted to skip to a particular part of the commentary where Mr. Suber is talking about a particular point, you can just refer to that point as it's described in this chapter breakdown here, and then skip to that particular chapter and listen to the commentary that way. So I think that's a very nice touch. Even with modern DVD, Blu-ray releases and the like, I never see that, or I rarely see that in terms of Blu-ray breakdowns. There's a chapter breakdown in terms of the film, but there's rarely ever any chapter breakdown in terms of the commentary track. So that's a very interesting detail as far as this particular CAV release of High Noon is concerned. So great. I should mention also that this is a 3M manufactured Laserdisc set. So this is the first printing of High Noon on Criterion Laserdisc. And incidentally, I should also mention that in the particular copy that I have, there's this little piece of paper that was included, which indicates essentially the other titles that were available on Criterion Laserdisc at the time, and it's if you wanted to order other titles, you could just call the telephone number that was featured on the bottom here. So this was back in the early day, of course, before the internet, before online shopping, but this was the way that the Criterion Collection, or the Voyager Company at the time, was trying to promote their other titles in the catalog, the ever-growing catalog. So this is High Noon, the first printing, which is the 2-disc, 3-side spread out release of the disc, or release of the film. Then we have the second printing, which according to the back is from 1989, which is right here. This is also the one I have here. This is a 3M manufactured 2-disc set, or 2-disc release, and as you can see, it has the same picture adorning the front cover as did the silver cover earlier printing release. So that's the same. Maybe the difference is, of course, the color of the cover itself, plus the use of the black barred logo, which is now the logo to use for these particular releases at the time, which differed from the very, very start of the Criterion Laserdisc catalog, of course, as you can see. And then, of course, there's a difference in terms of the font used for the title itself. Then we have the back right here, which also has the same information that we saw in the earlier silver cover release, the same essay by Howard Suber, and the breakdown of the cast and crew, and also the chapter breakdown and other information about the Laserdisc. And then we have the inside, which is again featuring the same picture that we saw on the inside of the silver cover release. And then on the other side here we have a full cast and crew breakdown, followed by the chapter breakdown of the commentary track by Howard Suber. So I should mention that the Howard Suber commentary track, or the essay, the 80-minute essay, is also available on this as well as it was on this. And while I'm on the topic of supplements, I should mention also that both releases here are CAV full format releases, 2 discs each, and so the contents and the data that's on each disc is essentially identical. There's no difference that I can tell between the contents of the discs here and the contents of the discs there, which means also that the supplements are the same. And what are the supplements? In addition to the commentary track, which I also mentioned, there's also the original theatrical trailer. There's also a section where there is a set of photos and also storyboards, and the storyboards are actually they go from the beginning of the film to essentially the end of the film. So you're getting, I don't think the entirety of the storyboards, but you're getting many of the storyboards that are of significant points of the film from beginning to end. So this is in a press forward fashion, so like a slideshow, and you just press forward or backwards to get to the photo or the slide that you want to get to. And then there is another supplement, which is a typed out slides that you can press forward and go forward in, like another slideshow, except these are slides of text, and the text is basically a reproduction of the notes that were given by the screenwriter Carl Foreman. And the notes deal with certain characterizations, certain settings, and the like. And so these provide further insight into the production history and the genesis of the story, etc. And then speaking of the genesis of the story, there is a very interesting relationship, let me put it that way, between the screenplay that Carl Foreman wrote and another story that apparently had been in existence, and it's called The Tin Star. And this is the short story that had a lot of similarity with the screenplay that Foreman wrote. And so the production background, according to the supplements here and the Howard Suber commentary, and also other supplements found on other releases of High Noon, indicate that in order to try to avoid any legal ramifications, the rights to this story, The Tin Star, were bought by the studio. And so we have the story itself presented as another sort of slideshow. In other words, you have the story printed out on these slides, which you can then fast forward through one slide at a time and read the story itself. So you have the actual the short story that forms, for lack of a better phrase, the sort of basis or essence of what essentially became the film High Noon. So that's a very interesting thing as well. Again, it's in a slideshow format, so it's not in any kind of text form like we would otherwise see in, let's say, recent releases in terms of booklets or anything like that. During this time, it would all be in this slideshow text format. Which has a really nice charm in and of itself, I think. So that, in a nutshell, is what we have in terms of the CAV releases here and here for spine number 7 in the Criterion Collection Laserdisc catalog. But, my friends, that is not the only, those aren't the only releases of High Noon by the Criterion Collection in Laserdisc form, because we also have the CLV release that was in 1989 as well, which is right here. And this CLV release is extended play format, and this has the spine number of 7A. So once again, the two CAV releases of High Noon had spine number 7, but the single disc CLV release has spine number 7A. And so you have one disc, the film spread out over two sides of that one disc, and then you have on the back a kind of breakdown, which is, of course, the essay by Howard Suber, which is the same essay that we found on the earlier two CAV releases, by Howard Suber. And then the information about the breakdown of the cast and crew, and also the chapter breakdown over the now two sides instead of the earlier CAV release of 3 sides. So that's very interesting. As the CLV release, which is extended play on one disc only, we don't get any of the supplements that we saw on the earlier AV releases. So we don't get any trailer, we don't get any slideshow of the stills or the storyboards, we don't get any text of the Tin Star short story, we don't get any Carl Foreman screenplay notes. But an interesting thing is we do get, as an audio option, the Howard Suber commentary track. So that's a very interesting thing in terms of CLV releases. It's nice to see the commentary track also included here, as it was included on the CAV releases. So you do get that as well. I should say also that because this is a single disc, it doesn't fold out. It's just the front and the back. But we do get in the corner here the still of Gary Cooper that we had seen in the earlier AV releases that opened up, and you saw that huge still that was in the inner part of this. Now we have that same still, but it's in the lower corner. So that is High Noon in terms of these releases. This is, in essence, the spine number 7 or 7A for purposes of the Criterion Collection Laserdiscs. This is High Noon. And so I understand that this film is not currently in the current Criterion Collection DVD Blu-ray catalog, and I don't know as to the chances of it re-emerging in that catalog. Of course, it would be great if it did, but for now, of course, it does exist on other labels, as we know, and it also exists in other formats, and we still have, for Laserdisc enthusiasts anyway, the film that we have on Criterion Laserdisc here and also here and here. So my friends, this is High Noon. Okay, so that's it for now, and until we meet again, please be happy and healthy and well, and please keep on watching a lot of great movies. So thank you very much for your time. Please take good care of yourselves, and until we meet again, thank you and cheers.